Please give it up for Chris Gibbs.
Thanks, good on. Thanks, Rafi, I appreciate it. Before I get started with our presentation, which I was asked to deliver about 2 weeks ago, I came up to my wife of 27 years, and I said, hey, honey, they want me to speak about what happened to our business and how we've changed everything else. And she goes, who? And I said, oh, it's EO. She goes, ego? She used to always call it ego. From the moment I was a member of EO. And I said, yes, I'm going to be speaking at EO. Last night, I came home from work and I said, do you mind watching me do this presentation? Let me practice it with you, right? She said, yeah, it's fine. So I did it while she was making dinner. And at the end, she said, what are you looking to achieve from the presentation? I said, well, I just want to share the story, and I think it would be important for all these entrepreneurs to hear it in case they come up with something similar, and maybe they'll garner a little bit of what I've learned from it. She goes, okay, well, you told me the story. I want you to share the story. So I was like, all right, words of wisdom from my beautiful wife. So I'm going to attempt today to share this story with you, and I hope you get a little bit from it, okay? So in life and in business, I always live by one simple rule. Always find a window. Because no matter how difficult something gets, you can always find a way out, a way forward, or a new perspective. In 2002, as you heard earlier, my wife and my father-in-law and I started a trade show company. Now we did this out of the guest bedroom of my home in his basement. Started from basically nothing through 6 months of savings into it. And just basically created, in the trade shows, we created this event from nothing. And it was hard. It was $70 a day for the first 5 years of the business. And it took us, really probably 8 to 10 years before we really started making good money. And then what happened is 2020 happened, similar to Michelle, right? So 2020 in our business, we're in the live event business, right? So 2020 happened. Our show was staged to be held March 31st, 2020. So if you remember back then, we were kind of running and gunning, and we were hoping we could get this thing staged. We had seen the pandemic numbers starting, but no one had shut anything down. So we were hopeful to be able to stage the event. And 2 years earlier, in 2018, we were offered by several companies millions of dollars for our business. But we thought we had a tiger by the tail. We said, no, we're going to keep going. We think it can be worth even more. Our big show was set to stage March 31st, 2020 at the Las Vegas Convention Center. So that afternoon, the city called and they decided to close the convention center until further notice, like the cities that were shutting down. We thought it'd be safe to postpone the event until September of that year. But as the months went by and as the COVID numbers continued to climb, that wasn't going to be an option. So by August, we saw we had 2 windows left. Either postpone the event to September, to November, which we did. And the second one was to try and sell the business to another company that could afford to pay the exhibitors back. So in the trade show business, you have cancellation insurance. But one thing very few operators had at the time was a rider policy for a pandemic, because one had never really happened before, right? So we did not have a rider pandemic, so we either had to stage the show or refund the exhibitors their money. And the money that we had from the exhibitors was used to promote the event for the whole year. So it was obviously a cash flow problem, right? So ultimately, both those windows slammed shut. We filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy on September 21st, 2020. It's a date I'll always remember. Letting go of 25 employees and watching something of 18 years disappear that you grew from nothing, it was crushing, obviously. And for a while, I felt like I was standing in a room with no windows at all, right? Obviously, I began to regret not selling the business. What if we'd have sold the business? What if I had, I won't tell you the number, but it was a big number. What if I had that money in our bank account? I was having trouble sleeping at night. I was feeling anxious, during the day. I had a mortgage, a wife, 3 children, One was at Auburn University, so I was paying out-of-state tuition, and Auburn, I don't know if anyone knows what that costs, but it's not cheap. And actually, during the pandemic, they went up in their money. Yeah, so it was a little berserk. But here's what I learned. When life closes every window, the only thing left to do is open one yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, this is Ralphie, and for me, that window was connection. Again, that window was connection. But it wasn't the easiest window to open. I was obviously very insecure. I was vulnerable. Ralphie earlier said, as an entrepreneur, we take up a lot of space. At that time, I wasn't taking up any space, right? So before, I could take up rooms and rooms and rooms, but at this point, I was not. I was dealing with a lot of uncertainty. Could I lead again? Could I start another business at 48 years old again from nothing, right? But I knew I had to connect to move forward. So that's what I did. My first call was to my best friend, and I've known him since second grade, JJ. I called him up, walked on my deck, he picked up, and I started to tell him what happened. And emotion ran over me. I was crying and everything else, because I think a year earlier I was boasting about how great the business was with him. And what he said to me was, my friends call me Gibbs. He said, Gibbs, I'm not worried about you, man. I can't wait to see what you're gonna do next. And he stood me up, literally stood me up. And I was like, okay, wow, that's my best friend. Of course he's gonna say that. Get on the phone, talk to another friend, and it was a client out of Chicago, and same thing. I mean, it was baffling to me, because I thought I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. What are you gonna do? And they were like, oh man, you're good. I wasn't feeling good, but they were reassuring me that I had nothing to worry about. And I kept hearing this positive feedback to my situation, and that they believed in me, and that this is a time when I didn't believe in myself. I was questioning everything, right? So what I did is I made it a purpose to speak to at least one person a day, preferably in person, and if not, on the phone. It was a quota. I was in sales my whole life, so I was giving myself a quota, giving myself some accountability. So I would do this every day. I don't care if it was breakfast, lunch, dinner, beers, didn't matter. Get the meeting and have the meeting. And I would have this meeting, and I kept finding the same response. I would do this with former mentors. I would do this with friends, former colleagues. Hell, I did this with some of my old competitors. No one was off the table. And the same responses I got over and over again was, what are you going to do next? And have you thought of this? Or hey, I'm going to have an opportunity over here or there. And it was just creating a lot of options or windows that I had not seen before. And it really started to restore the faith in myself and my abilities. And it turned out what I was doing, and I wasn't doing it on purpose, but I was creating a fan base. I mean, literally creating my own fan base. And we all know when you have fans, it's a heck of a lot easier to win, right? So if I'm on the football field as a quarterback and I'm throwing touchdowns, there's no one in the stands, it's a lot harder to win, right? So I started to create this fan base. And it was the connection that let the light back in the room that had been so dark. Because when everything falls apart, when the money's gone, and believe me, it was gone at this point, when the plans fail, the doors close, the only thing that really can keep you moving is people. It's connection. And it reminded me that perseverance is not about just grinding it and hammering it by yourself, but it's about staying connected. And the conversations that you have shift your perspective. They take away the doubt. They give you hope when you're feeling hopeless. People remind you who you are when you've forgotten, and I had forgotten during those moments of despair. And in the community that really helps you see the possibility of what could be ahead of you. So that's how I kept going. And that was the window that helped me persevere, grind, rebuild, and step into what came next. And within weeks, I had several windows in front of me. And the one that felt right was to buy a small retail liquidation firm with my brother and another friend. And on December 31st, 14 weeks after I had declared bankruptcy, I stepped through that window as CEO. We immediately rebranded that business. It was one store in Chamblee, which we still have. Rebranded it, went from just over $2 million in multiple locations. I mean, in one location, and we've grown it to multiple locations, an online presence, and we're chasing down 10 million really quick here. Thank you. And I keep opening windows all the time, because what I learned is you have to have these windows and you got to crack them open. We just launched another business 3 weeks ago in the installation world. We have another business under development. Actually, I was meeting with the web designer yesterday for another business in the building distribution industry. So I guess what I've learned is, you know, there is always a window there. You have to find it, right? Or you have to create it yourself and open it yourself, like I told you earlier. But there is always a window, and that window opens when you reach out and connect. And just so you all know, as of now, you can count on me for one of those connections. Thank you.